9 sacrifices you have to make
to grow financially.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode. So today, it's just going to be a quick, simple chat. The reason why we decided to create this video was because recently I liquidated part of my real estate portfolio, and I actually talk about that in this video. And when I was actually going through the liquidation, I was looking at some of the paperwork and sort of like reliving memories as to when I first started investing in real estate. And we were actually chatting about it, and we thought, well, if we have to do this all over again, what will be some of the lessons learned we actually, took from those experiences? It felt like it was a long ride at the time, but now a couple of years down the road, we figured that they were sacrifices that were very well worth it. So today we wanted to do this episode to share the 9 sacrifices that we both had to do in order to have that financial growth and that future that, we have today in a way. So I wanted to start the list by sharing that the very first sacrifice I had to do was to actually reset my expectations, kind of like come down from that cloud or that ideal that I have to have. And what do I mean by that? So I went to college and eventually I got a job. And then a couple of years later, I got a better job, and then I got a better job, and I started making more money and more money. But I was keeping less and less, not only on the tax front, but because I was having this very expensive lifestyle that kept growing over time. And the more money I made, the more I kept telling myself, oh, this is the life that I deserve. This is what I deserve because I worked so hard for so many years. I was studying while my friends were partying. And no, I mean, it's not about the life that I deserve. If anything, when I was in college studying and working at the same time, that was actually an opportunity that life was giving me to become better, to be more responsible. And that's not a trade-off to justify that life owed me more. So in terms of the sacrifices, I had to really, really, really cut down on those luxuries. They're not a sacrifice now, but at the time it did feel like a sacrifice because I've gotten into this very comfortable lifestyle, living in a nice luxury condo, having a certain wardrobe, a collection of handbags and things like that, going to happy hour, dining at expensive restaurants. So for me, it did feel like a sacrifice because I had to cut down my entire circle out. So when my coworkers and my friends were doing those networking events, those company outings, I wasn't going out. And it felt like a sacrifice because I felt like I was sacrificing my career at the time. I wasn't moving forward. But it was something that I needed to do to cut down on the expenses in order to find that better financial future for myself. What about you?
Well, now that you're talking about circles, let's talk about environments. I had to switch my environment where I was spending a lot of the time. And in that case, for me, it was salsa dancing. A lot of friends, they were calling me, okay, let's go salsa dancing and let's do this on Saturday. Maybe let's go to the other salsa dancing on Sundays. A lot of the times I had to say no because obviously we were working in a business, not only NOVARISE, but previously to NOVARISE, we'd had other businesses as well.
That eventually failed.
And we needed to allocate a lot of time on this. Some of the friends, they asked me, okay, why are you not enjoying life? Why are you not going out? And I told them I have a goal, and my goal is to be financially independent, and that's what I want to do. And in order to do something like that, obviously I need to cut out some of the fun that I was having in those environments, and that's what I did.
I mean, more than cutting out fun, you were having fun doing what you were doing because you were learning something new. But I think it all comes down to, we only have 24 hours a day.
Yeah.
And yes, you could go to your salsa dancing socials, but there's nothing wrong with having fun from time to time. But then you're cutting time out of the business. And
Correct.
So that means that your path for that growth was actually becoming longer and longer
Yep.
and further away. And that was the trade-off for you. along those lines on like sacrificing, cutting down circles and things like that, I also had to cut down on my environment. So like I ended up moving away from that nice luxury condo where I was living with the view of the city. And when I first signed the lease, it was just marketed to me as in like, oh, you get access to the rooftop and all that stuff. But that happiness and that excitement became nothing after 2-3 nights. I was broke because I really didn't have money left. And then I realized, what is this good for? I'm alone in this apartment. Yes, I get the view of the city, but what is the city doing for me? Like, aside from that, there's nothing. So I obviously waited out until my lease is over, and I moved further away from the city, further into the suburbs. I doubled my commute time, but I saved $1,000, and I actually moved to a place similar in space, a tiny studio apartment in New York City, but I was able to save $1,000. So that was another sacrifice. It was good on the saving front, but my commute became longer, and that means I had to sleep less. But that was fine because I was able to slash up $1,000 from my expenses. And then when I take those $1,000 and you multiply that by 12, we're talking about a $12,000 savings. And it felt very nice to be able to look at my bank account and have that extra $12,000 in my bank account. And I do remember actually creating a video about it in YouTube where I gave a tour of the apartment, and many criticized me because they found it to be difficult to understand. How could someone live in a place where the kitchen is right here and then the bed is on the other side, and every time you cook, you get oil? But you know what? I didn't care. So what if I got oil? Just do laundry, right? And then that's it. But the ultimate goal was that I needed to slash my expenses, save some money, and then be able to use that money and invest it for the long term, which it's something I was able to do finally. What about you?
My sacrifice was when I needed to mute my phone completely because we were studying. So obviously I needed to focus more on expanding the business or just coming up with new ideas and how can we expand the businesses that we had. And obviously, the phone for me was a distraction, receiving notifications all the time. You told me a couple of times, how can you receive that many notifications? Don't you get crazy about it?
Oh my God, your phone was like ringing every couple of minutes. It was filled with notifications.
Yeah.
Me, on the other hand, my phone is always in silent. Sometimes I cannot even find it.
Yep. So then I decided to change that. And what I did basically, every time I was working at home, I would put my phone on one room and then I'll go to work in a different room so I don't get distracted. Because even if you have your phone close to yourself, like could be in your desk, you might get tempted to just hover over that and just check at the hour. Or maybe you just check, okay, who sent you a message? So I turn off the notifications. I only got notifications from people that were very important to me, family members, obviously Lucelia, and anything else I just muted. Like notifications from Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. And then all of a sudden I became more productive, and then I was able to accomplish more in less time. So that was a sacrifice. At the moment, it definitely felt like a sacrifice, but now that I look back into it, I'm like, that was the right thing to do. And even now, you should definitely do that and not receive a lot of notifications on your phone.
I think for you, it felt like a sacrifice because you're disconnecting from your circle.
Yeah.
Right? And you're more of like a social butterfly that likes to connect with people and make friends. And so I can see why it must have been difficult for you to just, put everything on hold because you needed something else to focus on. In my case, another sacrifice I had to do was to stop spending money on my credit card, which is kind of ironic because we do talk a lot about, using your credit cards to investing and stuff like that. But at the time, I wasn't the most financially responsible person because I took my job or my career for granted. And as long as I was making money, I figured I could continue to pay that credit card. So I acquired a lot of debt over the years on things that were not adding any value, like expensive dinners and, buying brand clothing and things like that, which is nice from time to time to give you that nice reward, but not when that's the sole purpose of how you validate your efforts. Because at the end of the day, if you fall into an emergency or you need to help your family member with something, you don't really have any savings left other than just a bunch of credit card debt. And if I would have used that credit card responsibly, that credit card would have been available as an emergency fund. Not ideal, but I couldn't even do that, right? And so a sacrifice was to cut down on that lifestyle, stop spending more money on that credit card, which, mind you, when you have a credit card and you start paying the debt down, credit card companies tempt you with it. They realize that you start paying down your debt, so they start sending you offers and they start telling you, hey, you know, we notice you have this big credit limit. How about I increase it a couple of thousands more? And on top of that, I'm going to make it 0%. So you can do some shopping and not have to worry about any interest, right? So it was very tempting. Like, I kept asking myself, well, you know, I've been sacrificing myself for like 6-7 months now. Maybe a little slip up wouldn't hurt. I'm stressed out. How about buying this handbag, or like just treating myself to this special dinner from time to time? And it was difficult. It was a difficult choice. But what kept me going was to, you know, think about my end goal and say, no, this is where I want to be. And then once I get there, maybe I can start thinking about a reward. But I haven't been there, so I shouldn't prematurely reward myself for something that I have not earned. And so instead, what I chose to do was to take advantage of those promotional offers and the balance transfers. And that helped me come out of that a lot faster. In retrospect, it doesn't feel like a sacrifice now, because I think it became kind of like a way of living for us. But at the time, it did take some level of effort for me to get away from those habits.
And it felt like a sacrifice.
It felt like a sacrifice, for sure.
On my end, staying on the topic of food, which it felt at the moment like a sacrifice, which was adding more apps into my phone. I don't like keep adding more apps, because right now I'm sure you already have Instagram, maybe YouTube, maybe iTunes, or whatever app that you have on your phone. And adding more apps, sometimes I get turned off by just getting a service and needing to add an app on top of that. So I was living paycheck to paycheck. So that means that I needed to find ways in how I can maximize my money. One of those ways was adding apps from services I was using. One of the services that I was using a lot was Food Bazaar. For the ones that don't know what Food Bazaar is a franchise here in New York.
A chain.
Yeah.
Yeah, it only exists in New York.
As far as I know, it's just New York, right?
Yeah, I don't know. I think so.
Yeah, we don't know.
But they're pretty big in New York. Competitive prices. And I think what we like the most is the variety of seasoning. Like, every aisle represents a country. We're not sponsored by them, which is like that. And they have good pricing and good quality food. Yeah.
So when I was making the line to pay for the food, I realized that there was an ad right there in the front desk. I read that, and they said, okay, download the app and you start accumulating points. I was like, oh, maybe it's a good idea. But at the moment, I saw it as a sacrifice. Downloading the app, creating an account, putting your password every time that you're going to enter the line and pay for that. Not only that, making other people wait while you're holding the app out and all of that. And I saw it as a sacrifice. But down the road, after a couple of months of purchasing with the app, I realized that it was saving me a lot of money. So every time that we were doing like Thanksgiving dinner at the end of the year, we were like saving $300 because I pulled the app and I accumulated enough points to get like at least a $300 off from the groceries. So I was like, oh, even though at the time it felt like a sacrifice, now it doesn't feel like a sacrifice anymore.
Yeah, to me, it was similar. I had to really, really be very, very strict for the budget that I was allocating for food. At the time, I was working in the city in Manhattan, and for those who don't know, Manhattan is very expensive.
Very expensive.
So I was in the habit of just going out for lunch because I didn't feel like bringing lunch into work. And each time I went out for lunch, whether it's with a coworker or just myself, just to grab it, it would at least cost somewhere between $20 to $25. Now, if you take $25 and you multiply that by 5 days out of the week, we're talking about $125 per week. And then when you take that to a month, we're talking about $500. That's a lot of money to be spending just on lunch. So what I decided to do was to just, plan a very tight budget and not get out of it. So I slashed all my expenses and I allocated only $200 a month for all meals, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So what I had to do was I had to start looking for better pricing in terms of groceries. So most of my groceries were actually done in Amazon. They have way better pricing and everything gets delivered to your door, which for me was a no-brainer because we were pulling long hours, not only on our 9-to-5 job, but also working in NOVARISE. And so I order everything from oatmeal, chia seeds, tea, coffee, much better pricing. And then whatever I couldn't get on Amazon, I will go to the local supermarket, Food Bazaar, once again, and get what I needed. So a day or two out of the week, I will make sure I plan everything and do the cooking for the entire week. I'm not going to say it got a little boring. That's where the whole sacrificing thing came. I was tempted sometimes to have that nice, lunch menu that sometimes you will see your coworkers getting. And then I had to pull my, lunch from home and then just heat it up in the microwave. But I got great benefits out of it. Not only I was able to save money, but I also became healthier because I didn't realize how much seasoning those restaurants will put in the food. And plus, sometimes they don't necessarily have the best ingredients. Well, versus when you were cooking, you know exactly what you're putting in your food. And those extra pounds that were bothering me, I actually shred those off just by eating healthy. And on top of that, I got to save money and slash money out of my budget. And also on the topic of food and also socializing, sometimes we will get invites from our friends to do picnics, especially in the summer because, like New York City, it's cold most of the year. So when the sun just peaks out, like everybody gets very excited and they want to do something outdoorsy. And there was always that chance, let's go to brunch together, let's go to a restaurant together. And when you do the math, that was expensive. So for the most part, I didn't go to most gathering, and I think you didn't either. And if we did go, it was almost towards the end when people were done eating. But then there were times where we wanted to be there from beginning to end, and those typically will be picnics, right? But back in the days, even when I attended the picnics, I wanted to be practical. I didn't want to have to bother about waking up early and making food. I would just go to the supermarket or go to a restaurant, order something big, and then just bring it for everybody. And even that I ended up cutting out and not doing. So because I needed to stay very, very tight within my $200 budget, what I always wound up bringing to every picnic was guacamole. Everybody loves guacamole.
I love guacamole.
3 avocados for $5, 12 limes for just $1. And then the seasoning was already at home, like the salt and then whatever thing you add in there. And then plus if you want to have tomato, whatever, it came out really, really, really affordable. And the beauty of it is that I will bring this big pot of guac and people couldn't even finish it because I will make so much out of it. And not only it was cheaper, but it was also healthier in a way, even for me and everybody else, because I know what I put in there. So in retrospect, I don't think any of those are sacrifices now for us because it became a way of living, right? Even when it comes to socializing, we are more careful because now we have not only a business to preserve, but then at the end of the day, we're what are we getting out of it, right? If there's nothing that helps contribute to our growth, we just thank them for the invite and we just, see you next time, so to speak, right?
See you later, alligator.
Yeah. So anything else you want to share?
To make sure to share this video with your family, friends, pets, anyone.
Anyone you think will find value in this video. Let us know if you have any additional questions or any feedback if you want us to create more content like this. It wasn't anything planned. It was just something that came out very natural. And we thought, hey, let's just share with the audience a little bit about our humble beginnings. And, let's go for more. See you in the next video. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.